The Keltharian armada stretched across the void like a swarm of metallic locusts, 300 warships strong. Admiral Zekthor stood on the bridge of the flagship Eternal Dominance, his four eyes gleaming with predatory satisfaction as the tactical display showed their target. One ship, a single human vessel. The U.S. Defiant hung in space like a gray splinter, no larger than a Keltharian corvette. Its hull bore the scars of previous engagements, carbon scoring and hastily welded plates telling stories of desperate survival. To Zekthor's trained eye, it looked like something that should have been scrapped decades ago. They send one ship? His second-in-command, Officer Vral, clicked his mandibles in amusement. The humans mock us with this insult. Laughter rippled through the bridge crew. The Keltharian Empire had conquered 47 star systems in the past century. Their military doctrine was built on overwhelming force, their ships armed with plasma cannons that could crack planets, and the humans, those strange bipedal mammals who had only achieved faster-than-light travel 50 years ago, dared to stand against them with a single outdated frigate. "Hail them!" Zekthor ordered, still chuckling. "I want to see the fear in their captain's eyes before we reduce their ship to atoms." The view screen flickered to life, revealing a human female in a worn military uniform. Captain Sarah Chen looked tired, her dark hair pulled back in a regulation bun, a thin scar running down her left cheek. But her eyes held no fear, only cold calculation. "This is Captain Chen of the U.S. Defiant," she said, her voice steady. "You are in violation of the Terran exclusion zone. Turn back now or face the consequences." The entire Keltharian bridge erupted in laughter. Zekthor had to wipe moisture from his eyes. "Consequences? You are one ship. We are an armada. Surrender now, human, and perhaps we will allow you to die quickly." Chen's expression didn't change. "I'll give you 10 seconds to jump to FTL. After that, I can't guarantee your survival." "Insolent creature." Zekthor's amusement curdled into rage. "All ships weapons free. Destroy—" "Your 10 seconds are up," Chen interrupted. Her hand moved across her command console. "Defiant protocol authorized. Code Thermopylae." Nothing happened for exactly 1.3 seconds. Then the Defiant's hull split open like a mechanical flower, and hell came to visit the Keltharian armada. What emerged wasn't a weapons system in any conventional sense. The Keltharians had studied human military technology extensively. They knew about railguns, missiles, laser batteries, plasma torpedoes. They had prepared countermeasures for everything in the human arsenal. They had not prepared for what humanity had built in secret for the past 20 years. The devices that deployed from the Defiant were small, barely larger than a human fist. Thousands of them, spreading out in a perfect sphere around the lone ship. They didn't look like weapons. They looked like nothing more than metallic spheres with a faint blue glow. "What are those?" Vral demanded, his earlier confidence evaporating. Zekthor was about to order evasive maneuvers when the spheres activated. Humanity had always been good at one thing above all others: taking theoretical physics and weaponizing it. While other species had dabbled with exotic matter and quantum mechanics, humans had weaponized spacetime itself. The spheres were Alcubierre mines. Each device created a microscopic warp bubble, a tiny region of space where the laws of physics bent at humanity's command. But unlike the warp drives that pulled ships across the stars, these bubbles were weaponized, unstable, designed to collapse catastrophically after 0.7 seconds. When they did, the results were spectacular. The first Keltharian destroyer simply ceased to exist. One moment it was there, armor plating gleaming, weapons charging. The next moment, the space it occupied folded in on itself, and the ship was compressed into a singularity the size of a pinhead before the bubble collapsed, releasing all that energy in a burst of exotic radiation. Then the second ship vanished. Then the third. Then 10 ships at once. The mines moved with purpose, guided by the Defiant's tactical AI, each one seeking a target. They slipped through shields like they weren't there because, in a very real sense, they weren't there in normal spacetime. They materialized inside ships, bypassing every defensive system the Keltharians had. "Evasive maneuvers!" Zekthor screamed, but it was too late. The proud Keltharian armada, 300 ships that had brought entire civilizations to their knees, lasted exactly 17 seconds against humanity's answer to overwhelming force. Ships folded in on themselves. Others were torn apart as competing warp fields ripped them into subatomic particles. A few tried to jump to FTL, but the exotic radiation from the collapsed bubbles disrupted their warp drives, and they exploded in bursts of antimatter. Zekthor watched in horror as his fleet simply disappeared. 300 ships, thousands of warriors gone. Only the flagship remained, spared by Captain Chen's deliberate choice. One ship left alive to carry a message. "This is Captain Chen to surviving Keltharian vessel." The human's voice came through the comm system, still calm, still steady. "You came here with 300 ships to intimidate us, to conquer us, to make an example of us." On the Defiance bridge, Chen stood and walked toward the viewscreen, her reflection merging with the image of the dying Keltharian flagship. "Humans have a saying, Admiral. We learned it in a place called Thermopylae, thousands of years ago. When facing overwhelming odds, when standing against an empire that thought itself invincible, our ancestors had a response." She leaned forward, and Zekthor saw something in her eyes that made his blood run cold. Not anger, not hatred, just the absolute certainty of someone who knew exactly what they were capable of. "Come and take it," Chen said softly. "You brought 300 ships to scare one human vessel. Now go home and tell your empire what happened here. Tell them that Earth doesn't field large fleets because we don't need to. Tell them that every human ship is built to fight outnumbered and win." She smiled, and it was not a kind expression. "And tell them that the Defiant isn't even our best ship." Zekthor's hands trembled as he gave the order to retreat. As the Eternal Dominance jumped to FTL, leaving behind only debris and radiation, he realized something that would haunt him forever. The humans hadn't been insulting the Keltharian Empire by sending one ship. They had been showing mercy. Back at the boundary of the exclusion zone, the Defiant held its position, keeping watch. Inside, Captain Chen returned to her command chair, her executive officer approaching with a data pad. "Casualty report, Captain?" "0, Chen replied. "Mission successful. The message has been sent. Do you think they'll come back?" Chen looked out at the stars, at the vast darkness where an armada had been just minutes before. She thought about the other 18 Defiant-class ships stationed at strategic points around Earth's territory, each one waiting, each one carrying enough weaponized physics to end a fleet. "I hope not, Commander," she said quietly. "I really hope not, because if they do, next time we won't leave survivors." The Defiant drifted in the void, alone but unafraid, a single human ship that had just rewritten the galaxy's understanding of warfare. Behind it, Earth continued spinning, its 5 billion inhabitants going about their lives never knowing how close war had come, and how quickly humanity had ended it.